Welcome to the Domino Approach. Here are 10 predictions for the US in 2019. The Domino Approach has new videos every week. Please click that subscribe button below and join us so that you don't miss a thing. First, couple of disclaimers. Number one, the fact that I think some of these things are coming does not mean I want them to happen. It's just what I see coming. Having said that, at least one of them is going to be really funny to see journalists and politicians have to talk about. The other disclaimer I have to make is I'm not predicting something crazy. I don't think there'll be a zombie apocalypse in 2019. I just see a handful of things that I think are going to impact people's day-to-day lives. And today is December 17th, 2018 that I'm making these predictions. Let's get into it. Number one, return of recession. The U.S. economy hasn't had a recession in a while, and recessions are sort of like bowel movements. If you haven't had one in a while, it's pretty safe to bet that you're going to have one soon. And the U.S. is way overdue for a trip to the toilet with its economy. Um, the reason why I think this is going to happen primarily is going to be consumer spending is going to go down as more and more household budgets are strained. This does not mean that this is going to be another financial crisis and there's need to panic like the world is ending. This will be a very unfortunate thing, especially for rural towns and counties, as they tend to be more negatively impacted during an economic downturn. But I think by the end of December 2019, we're going to be using the recession word very openly. Number two, club crowdfund. In that same vein, the stock market, which seemed to go up forever and ever, is at least now towards the end of 2018 showing signs that that's not the case. A lot of people aren't going to want to invest their money in something they think is going to go on a downward trend. They're going to do the same thing with real estate. Well, maybe we're not in a real estate bubble, but a lot of people are thinking that real estate prices aren't going to go much higher. People aren't going to want to invest more into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as they're starting to wobble too. So I think a lot of money is going to go into crowdfunding as the baby boomers are still at the peak of their investing careers and going to want to have, you know, bigger places for potential returns. Kickstarter and Indiegogo are done to do very well for this. I don't know that investors will. I do think some pretty cool entertainment is going to come out of it that we wouldn't otherwise get. Number three, anti-Airbnb fever. So right now, much of the US is under an extreme housing crisis, where the supply of housing just doesn't meet the demand for it. Local officials have been negotiating for a while and trying to figure out what's to be done about this and what the cause is. But there are multiple causes, many of which are found amongst their own voter base. So the politicians aren't going to want to overregulate their own voters, but they're going to want to regulate something because they need to be able to show voters that they're taking some kind of action regarding the housing crisis. I think the next step we're going to see is a lot of these home sharing websites are likely to be regulated heavily in local jurisdictions, maybe even at the state level, to try to deal with this problem. And look for that to be a thing going into 2019. Number four, the return of medieval disease. I don't predict that regulating Airbnb is going to fix the housing crisis. It's going to take a lot more than that. Maybe I'm being over dramatic about the term medieval disease, but a lot more people than otherwise would are living in sort of medieval conditions in homeless camps where they lack access to basic things most of us take for granted. For one, adequate sanitation, and this is a major cause of potential health problems. And a lot of them will also be cut off from the healthcare system and antibiotics that most of us also take for granted. This is a public health crisis waiting to happen, and it will be very easy for and something that starts in a homeless class to spread to the wider population. Hopefully, whatever it is, the ramifications will be like that gross scene in Bridesmaid and not like what actually happened in medieval times. Number five, insurance loses endurance. 2019 is going to be a very bad year for the insurance industry as a whole, especially home and fire and other natural disaster insurance. Look for premiums to go up primarily because the frequency of natural disasters hitting society is higher as a result of climate change. And the insurance companies' business models weren't really accounted for that. So look to a lot of insurers to simply deny coverage, look for some of them to go bankrupt, and look for some big Wall Street investors to actually move out of the space into other places. I think into the 2020s, this is going to have a big effect on the actual banking industry, but for 2019, it's going to be limited to the insurance industry. Number six, federal dysfunction reaches ludicrous speed. You may be thinking that Washington politics can't get any more dysfunctional than it is right now. Well, this will be the year that U.S. politicians state, challenge accepted. This is because I expect both parties to sort of faction off into different groups as a result of a primary and upcoming presidential election. On the Republican side, cocaine Mitch McConnell is going to be torn from Republicans wanting to dump Delegate Donald in favor of Macho Mike. From the Democrats, Bolshevik Bernie and Coach Elizabeth are going to be fighting for the heart of the progressive wing, whereas bad boy Biden and corrupted Corey are likely to be fighting for the role of establishment Democrat. And that's just in the U.S. Senate. None of these factions are going to want to give anybody else a win, so they're all going to find reasons to fight and not work together. And this is in a context where our current president is likely to continue to fight with the media and fight with critics rather than come up with solutions. And things are going to happen internationally that's going to take a lot of their attention away from focusing on domestic issues. Having said that, number 7, new neodymium recycling programs. Now, you probably have never heard of neodymium, but it's a really important element in a lot of our electronics. I know when you heard the term, it probably sounds like something that the Power Rangers would take a form of, but it's something that the green economy, the high-tech economy can't function without. The problem is over 90% of it is currently sourced in China, and the U.S. isn't exactly getting along with China right now or for the foreseeable future. In 2018, the U.S. Department of Energy came up with a program to recycle it, and normally you'd see incremental investment in this. But in the current political climate, you're likely to see a different dynamic. I think a lot of the politicians are going to try to throw more and more money into neodymium recycling because everyone's going to be able to say, hey, we're doing this. This is a win. This isn't about science. This is about politics. But I expect neodymium to become a household word in 2019. Number 8, crazy copper speculation. So earlier in his presidency, President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord agreements. And there was a lot of backlash towards this. A lot of cities, counties, and states decided they were going to find themselves in accordance with the climate accord anyway. And the way they've collectively decided to do this is to electrify everything so that they can plug into solar and wind as it becomes available. Well, in order to electrify everything, you need copper. You need lots and lots of copper. And if everybody electrified, we wouldn't have enough. This is a prime ground for speculators to manipulate the market to make something out of nothing. And I see that being a regular thing happening in 2019. And a lot of investors, a lot of people on these type of projects aren't going to see it coming. Number 9, the birds and the bikes. So if you live in a major city, you're probably familiar with the problem of growing traffic issues. And electric scooters are being promoted as one potential solution to the problem. Traffic slows down productivity and really just is a general burden on city life. Now, cities can invest in subways, mass transit, buses, but that's really, really expensive. And individuals trying to get around it will either have to just sit in their cars and wait, sit in their bike lanes and wait, or find another solution. The e-scooters can be used by people not even with their phones, like Southport indicated, but without it. And that's where the divide is going to come in. Certain cities have a wealthy part of town and a not so wealthy part of town. The wealthy part of town tends to have more power, and they're not going to want the not so wealthy people who don't even have a cell phone to be able to ride these things over the train tracks into their secluded neighborhoods. I expect in 2019 we're going to see the same culture war that you see on Fox News and CNN happening live right in front of you at your city council meeting over this issue. Number 10, robot hooker fights. You may be wondering what I mean by that. I don't mean that robot hookers are going to fight each other, as entertaining as that might be. What I mean is that in 2018, 2 different types of operations opened that were basically called robot brothels. Not like the kind you would see in Westworld, but essentially places where you can go and literally rent a sex doll that's had some kind of AI imposed in it or program imposed in it. They tried this in Houston in 2018, and the city rejected it, and so did a few local officials near the city. In West Hollywood, the crowdfunding campaign to create something like this also failed to meet its goal. But in 2019, people are going to keep trying. And certain cities out there are going to accept this as a new reality. Why? Because of a pension process. Even Houston has a pension crisis, and this will be one place they're going to see as an easy place to tax the hell out of to close their budget shortfalls for the city and county. Bonus prediction, the move to the middle. Okay, so this chart right here shows how the population of those over 65 is growing and growing. The baby boomers are getting ready to retire, and the strain on household budgets that is bad enough when you're working is going to be overwhelming when you retire. And this is especially going to come into focus when the stock market goes down, when a lot of baby boomers are invested their retirement in the stock market. What that means is a lot of them are going to say, we need to move somewhere cheaper to last us our retirement. And what this is really going to translate to is a lot of people are going to move out of blue states that tend to be really expensive to red states that aren't so much. In particular, Arizona, Georgia, and Texas are likely to be three states that are going to see a whole lot of people moving from a blue state to a red state. And the electorate as a whole is likely to be much more interested in healthcare and Social Security than they have in years past. And this is going to complicate the Senate, congressional, and presidential elections in 2020. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe below. Again, the domino approach has new videos every week. Thank you.